Hey guys, we're back. This time we're going to be taking a look at Tiny Epic Mechs from Gamelin Games. I'm a little late getting on the Tiny Epic trail here. This is the first one I picked up, but there's a lot of game in this tiny little box. And it's a really cool kind of skirmish arena combat type game where you're running around, you pick up weapons, you eventually get a mech suit, and then there's a giant mech in the middle that you can pick up. And it's just a really neat concept. There's a little expansion that came with the Kickstarter version as well. And we'll get right in and take a look. They even put cool box art on the inside of the box. The really neat thing about this game is there's no dice or anything. It's all done through like pre-programmed cards. First thing we have here is our rulebook. And it's not that big. 20 pages here, front to back. And they have a components list of the massive amount of components that are in that little box. And lots of artwork to explain what everything is, how to set up your arena. There's different setups depending on the number of players. And the turn order isn't that complicated. It's pretty easy concept to pick up. And they have some rules for combat. And there's even a solo mode in the back here, which is the mode that I've messed around with the most. So first off, this bag is all Kickstarter stuff, so we're going to set that aside and come back to it. Everything else in this box is what you're going to get if you were to run out and buy this game today. So packing everything back into this box is a challenge because there is so much. I use the bags to mark off each of the players, so each of the different colors has their own baggie. And that made storage and putting things away a little easier. The only thing I was a little disappointed in is the colors. It's like here you can see, no, they're in the bag, sorry, but the colors of all your components are pretty nice. The color of the meeple and the color of the armor are pretty close there. These ones are similar, but you can see there the armor is way lighter than everything else in that faction. Then you have this one, the same thing. The armor is way lighter color than everything else. And I think these are plastic too, so they can't say they didn't have the right color plastic. I just don't know why they didn't use it for the armors. And then that one's like the most blatantly obvious. They're two completely different colors. But it's better than nothing. Then we have our Mighty Mech here. This actually comes apart. And my only real concern in this game is these little pegs here that hold this together. Your meeple actually goes inside there, so you look like you're piloting the mech, which is kind of cool. And then all these little slots actually have weapons that go into them. And I'm just worried that over time these pegs are going to break. And that might be kind of disappointing for a game if you can't use the one of the main components. The smaller suits of armor are the same way. They pop apart and your guy goes inside. Really curious to see how those are going to hold up over time. Then we have a giant bag of weapons here. And I'll open up all these bags and show you a few of the components closer up in a minute. We have our first player token and our round tracker tokens. Those are actually made of wood. The decks there, we'll go to those in a minute. And we have our player dashboards. Each player has a different special ability up here at the top, which make it more replayable because you can mix and match who you're using to change it up each game. Down here you have your life tracker. Then you have spots for your basic upgrades. When you're in your normal human form, you can only carry 2 basic upgrades, and they go one on either side here. On the flip side of each of these is your power armor self. That's what the little plastic armor sets are. Once you put on your armor suit, you gain access to 2 advanced shoulder-mounted weapons, and then you can also have your 2 basics here. I think you can mount basics on the shoulders too, but you can only ever have 4 weapons equipped, so you gotta kind of pick and choose. But you also gain the extra armor here, and then your life total. When this gets down to 0, you drop back to your normal size out of the power armor. As I said, there's a bunch of different characters. Each one has a unique ability. And there's a good mix of male and female. I think there might actually be more women than men too, which is kind of cool. You don't see that in a lot of games. Might be an even split. But definitely some variety there. Then we have our card for the Mighty Mech, which is this big guy here. When you pick him up, I think you get to choose one side or the other, which one you want to use. They, again, have different abilities. It gives you a massive thing of armor, and these can use 4 advanced weapons. But keep in mind, when you get knocked out of this and you go back to your other armor, you're limited to what weapons you can equip onto whatever armor you're wearing if you're just your basic self or your power armor. So you get 4 of these player reference cards. On one side they have a solo mode information to tell you how to play in solo mode, what the AI is going to do. Use those when you're using AI bots as opponents, basically. On the flip side is the player board. They show you how your weapons counter yourself or counter each other. There's a bunch of different games that use a similar mechanic. Depending on what weapon you're attacked with, if you counterattack with a certain weapon, you get a bonus damage. They have your scoring things here. At the bottom, this keeps track of your money. And then you have your different actions you can take here. And there's one for each of the colored players. Next we have the round counter. And it tells you every other round is a scoring round. So you have round 1, round 2, then you go through and do these to see who gets what points. Round 3, round 4, you do these again. That just keeps track of your rounds. And that's where this little token here goes. And then finally we have our scorecard. This is where you're going to keep track of your points on your race against the other players to see who scores the most. It's double-sided, but I think it's exactly the same on both sides. And then even on the bottom of the box here, they used to put some frequently asked questions, which are kind of cool. No wasted space. Onto the cards. The actual map is made up of tiles that are used in here. So about half of the deck here is your zone tiles, and there's a bunch of different kinds. And they also have these numbers in the corner as well as icons. When you control a zone and choose the collect action, you're going to collect based on what icon's on there. Some of them have multiple icons. The center one is actually where the Mighty Mech goes in the middle of the battlefield. And to deploy things in there, it costs you a number equal to whatever the number in the corner is. But then when you go to score, you also score based on those numbers. So the higher value ones cost you more to deploy things in, but you also get more for them. There's one with 2. And you can change these up each time you shuffle them in. The starting areas are color-coded to the different factions, and the centerpiece is always this, but the rest of them are kind of random where they're going to go when you lay out your board. Next we have our weapons, and they're cut up into 2 categories. You have basic weapons and advanced weapons. Basic weapons anybody can use, even if you're not in armor, and I think there's 4 of each. And there's a shield, a pistol, grenade launcher, a sword, and then your advanced weapons you can only use if you're in your power armor or the mech, and they are just all over the place, cool and powerful gadgets. They all have different functions and abilities. There's going to be so many of these available for you to purchase, and you get to pick and choose, which is kind of cool to customize. Just keep in mind, if you drop to your basic power pilot self, you can't use your advanced weapons. They get set aside. You don't lose them, you just can't equip them, and you go back to your basic weapons. Same thing if you're in the Mighty Mech and you have 4 advanced weapons and you end up back in your power armor at some point, you can only use 2 on your power armor. So keep in mind when you're buying those, if you buy too many of the advanced, you won't be able to use them, but they are the cooler and more powerful weapons. And then all of the weapons have a normal. This is what your normal attack is going to be up here. The amount of damage it does. Any special abilities, in this case none. The second one is if you're countering. So that little chart that we showed in the book there. So if somebody hits you with the correct weapon type and you're using the counter type, then you're going to use this ability down here, which is generally more powerful. Onto the actual figures. You have 3 deployable turrets, which are these tall things. Would have been kind of cool if they looked more like a turret, but they're good enough to recognize what they are on the board. And these you can deploy, and they're going to attack opponents who end up in that space. And your other one here are mines, and they're numbered 1 through 4, and the amount of damage they do is based on the number. You only have 1 of each, so you have to pick and choose when you deploy these, and you deploy them face down. Nobody knows what they are until they're actually triggered. For your other tokens here, you have your energy marker, I think it is, your health, and your credits. And then this one is used for your scoring. And then when you get up to the max level in the scoring, you get 40, you flip this over, and it's got a plus 40 on there. So you can start back at the bottom of the score track here with your plus 40. And we have these cool ITEMeeples, and they have holes in them so you can actually equip your weapons. They're plastic, not wood like most of them. Those are kind of neat. And then your armor. And again, same with the Big Mech, your armor suits here actually come apart. And they have these tiny little pegs, which I'm worried about over time how they're going to hold up. But you put your meeple inside like that. And this shuts. And then you're going to mount your weapons on here as you have your armor. It's a cute thing. It looks cool on the table. It's a little fiddly, especially with the little weapon pieces. And again, those pegs, I'm curious to see the longevity of them. I'm not going to open all the bags, but all of the player bags have those same components in them. Just more of the same. And then we have our weapon bag here. And you get a massive pile of these different weapons. And you have your 4 basic weapons there, your sword, your shield, the gun, and the grenade launcher. There's 4 of each of those so you can equip. And like I said, they go right on your guys. They go right on your guys like the other Tiny Epic games. They've used something similar. Again, I'm worried about the longevity of putting these on and off the pieces though, especially if you play with people who are a little rough. I'm afraid things are going to get broken. And the amount of time you actually put these in and out of your hands, every time you put on your armor, you're taking them off of your guy and you're putting them on the mech. So there's a lot of switching back and forth of the weapons. And oddly enough, when you're in the mech, you can put basic weapons on the shoulders, which kind of orient them weird, but they're made for the advanced weapons, which we'll get to here. So there's a whole pile of advanced weapons here, and they're all different, so they're all unique. You got a little rocket launcher there. Looks like an ion gun. There's a warhammer. Machine guns. There's a crossbow. Little Tesla coil thing. There's a power fist. Little Gatling gun turret. I don't know what the names of all these are. I think that's a railgun of some kind. There's a sniper rifle. Minigun. And so on. these ones are made specifically to go on the shoulder mounts. So they look cool on both the normal armors here as well as the Mighty Mech. And then the final thing to show here are the programming cards. And they're color coded here, one for each player. And you're going to select these. I think there's 2 of each. Yeah, there's 2 of each kind in here. And you're going to select these and you're going to put them in a way. So I want to move forward a space, or I want to move to the right a space, or backward a space. And you're going to play these in a certain order. And you put 4 of them in a pile. And they also have actions on them. So in this case, I'm going to move forward 1 and then I'm going to collect. So that collects on all these spaces you own. I'm going to move to the right 1 and deploy a turret. And purchase is how you buy your weapons. You can jump, which initiates combat. It also lets you, yeah, there's the cool jump diagonal. That's how you initiate combat and attack people. And if at some point you enter combat or something happens, you end up going to ad hoc mode, which you put this out, and then you can pick and choose what you want to use after that point. And it's just an interesting programming game. So you're going to end up with 4 of these in front of you. You can put them in a stack. I think they have you do them across. I'm not sure. I don't remember. But then you flip them over one by one. And I think you actually put them face up, now that I'm remembering, and then you put something on top of them so you can reveal them. That way there's no mistake on which way you wanted to go. I'm not positive on that. It's actually been a little while since I played this. I played it a bunch when it first came out, but then I got sick and took a break, and it's been a while. But I like the programming aspect of it. And it also works well for the single player mode, the way the programming works. So there's a quick look at everything that comes in that box. There's a lot of crap here for that tiny little box. And it's a fun game with a lot of replayability, mostly because of the variety of weapons available and the variety of pilots. You can mix it up so things are different every game. I like the solo player aspect with the AI. You can even use AI in a multiplayer game to add an extra player, that extra unpredictable element. The map changes up a little bit because you're making it different each time, although I wish that these were like a cardboard instead of an actual card. That would have been nice, but would have made the deck thicker and probably wouldn't have fit in the box, so I'm sure that's the reasoning behind that. But my biggest pet peeve is that the colors don't match the player color versus the meeple colors versus the armor color. They change 2 or 3 different times. It's hard enough for people with color issues to match up what they're doing to begin with when the things don't match themselves. It's a minor thing in the long run, but it's still one of those little pet peeves of mine. They did choose very good colors for the players. They are different enough. I know I have a red-green issue sometimes, and these are different enough where I can tell them apart. So there's that. But overall, it was a fun game. We played it, like I said, a while back. I haven't played it in a bit because I've been sick, and plus I've got a ton of new stuff that came in. But it's definitely something I will go back to. I do like the solo player aspect, so if nobody's around, I can't find anything to do, I can throw a game out, play against the AI. Now on top of everything that's there, if you bought this on the Kickstarter, you got these extras. If I can get the bag open. Which add even more to your game. First off, you get 2 new pilots, which also give you 2 new abilities. So Lotus and Ghost here are extra pilots that were from the Kickstarter. I don't know if there's any other way to get them, but anybody who backed the Kickstarter should have those. Then there were also 2 small mini expansions that came with the Kickstarter, the loot boxes and the spotlights. For the loot boxes, you get these little crates that end up on your map, and when you pick them up, They have different stuff inside, automatic power-ups, allowing you to go into ad hoc mode, free weapons, health regen. Those are kind of cool, and they respawn on the 2nd, 4th, and 6th round before programming. These get put on the board near the Mighty Mech in the center of the board, so kind of in a circle around it, and then you can pick those up and get the various bonuses from them. Those are a neat little addition to the game, just something extra. And the last one was the Spotlight, which is these little camera balls that add to the game, and they add to additional scoring. And I'm not sure exactly how they work because we haven't actually used this expansion, but they come with these little tokens, and you pick these up and you gain extra scoring based on certain things that you can accomplish. So it's a neat little addition to the game. Overall though, it's a fun little skirmish game. It has its quirks. There's some things that I wasn't too overly fond of the way they worked, but in the end, it's light, it's fun, it's a fast game. And you throw it up, you play a few rounds, you put it away, you go on to something else, which I think is the whole Tiny Epic thing. The fact that all of that fits in this tiny box is really what impresses me. And they're very portable. You can take it to wherever, and you get a collection of these. I actually own a couple Tiny Epic games now, and I really like that aspect of them. For what it is and the price, there's a lot you get in here, a lot of replayability, and definitely fun to be had. It's all in what you're looking for, though. The combat is kind of weird and takes some getting used to, where you basically enter combat and you keep going until you run out of weapons or you kill your opponent. And if you run out of weapons, you have to retreat. It's kind of weird, so if you go into battle with the same number of weapons as your opponent, if you can't kill them, you have to retreat. So you have to keep that in mind. It's kind of a strategy aspect of it. You either want to outgun your opponent, so you force them to retreat, or know that you're going to be able to kill them before you run out of weapons. So the combat takes a little bit getting used to, but it's fun, it's fast, and everything moves along at a quick enough pace where it doesn't really bother me. I like the way the game plays. I had a couple kind of rules ambiguities that I didn't much care for, but the people on BGG have been keeping up and straightening stuff like that out and coming up with how they think it should be played. And there's the FAQ right there in the box too, which helps with a few things. So that's always nice. Overall though, it's a fun game and I'm glad I picked it up. And hopefully the little pegs and things on the weapons and the mechs will hold up over time. If you have little kids, that might be something you want to look into. Maybe you want to put the stuff on there for them so that they don't get broke. There are a lot of tiny little pieces that are very fragile. The swords, especially when you put these pegs in the guy's hands and then you're trying to remove them later, the only thing to grab onto here is the blade, and they're quite flexible, and I'm afraid one of these days I'm going to grab that and it's going to snap right off with the handle. Only time's going to tell how well they'll hold up, but so far so good. And it is a fun game for what it is, and if it's something that looks interesting to you, definitely check it out. There's plenty of gameplay videos and things online, so see if it interests you. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for our look at Tiny Epic Mechs. As always, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.